Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another training session with Dave Collins from Single Point IT. Hope you've all had an excellent weekend. I'm living in New South Wales. We've just had our long weekend, 3 days off, and it's been excellent. And that's the reason today our training is on a Tuesday instead of a Monday, because I was pretty well assuming that most people were not going to be up for training on the Monday of a long weekend. For those of you joining us from other places in the world where you didn't just get to celebrate Her Majesty's birthday over the weekend, well then commiserations to you. And I hope whatever it is that you're currently doing, wherever you're up to in your school term, it's going quite well for you. Well, we're due to start in a couple of minutes. We're going to be using Google Draw this afternoon. So if you haven't used Google Draw before, I'm going to recommend that maybe you have Google Draw open. You can simply do that by going to drive.google.com. And then from there, you'll be able to select a new file, and it's not one of the default first three options. You have to get into more, and we'll look at how to do that in just a second. But in the meantime, thought it'd be good just to mention that maybe you might want to have a play with it as we go along. I also have some links that I would like to share with you, and I'm going to put that into the group chat. So I'm just clicking over here into the chat now and going here. So this afternoon, we're going to be using that group chat section, which should be great. All right. Well, I'll be with you shortly. Ready to start. Just clicking over to 3:30. I want to encourage you that if you are using, let's see if we can show it to you properly. I'm going to share my screen, which has got my Google Hangout screen, and it's just gone crazy on me, which is not to be unexpected. But you'll see over here there is a chat window, and you can access that by pressing the blue chat button up here and making it appear. And so I want to encourage everyone who's part of the chat this afternoon just to be able to open up the chat window and go, all right, hello, I am from, and what school and what you're going to be using it. And I know some people are out there watching in groups this afternoon, so I'm just going to turn off my screen sharing, go back to the traditional one. So over here, for example, I would go, hi all, my name is Dave Collins, and I work at Inabara School. I work as the Director of Innovation. So it's Learning Innovation, new title again this year. Innovation. And I press enter, and so we can all see that there. So if you're part of this presentation this afternoon and you're watching it live, can I encourage you to hook into that chat section at some stage and actually make sure that you let us know who you are and that you're watching it and how it's going from there. So this afternoon, first of all, I want to introduce you to a tool which you may not have used before, which is called Google Draw. Google Draw is an amazing tool in that it allows you to have the same type of collaborative experience on the web as you get in Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets. But at least in this particular setup, it's more focused around drawings. I guess it's good to be aware that it is possible to add a drawing from within any of those documents that I just mentioned then by simply just going up to the insert op menu and selecting drawing. But at the same time, you can have a standalone drawing, which I think is a really effective way to do it. So let's switch over to my screen. Let you see what I'm working on. All right, so you should now be able to see it, and I'm presenting it to all of you. So now you can actually see my Google Drive for work. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go Start. I'm going to come down here to where it says More, and you'll see that I have a couple extra ones installed, but Forms and Drawings by default should be there. Now, Drawings, I will admit, doesn't work particularly well on iPads at this point in time. It is not really functional on mobile devices, so my iPhone or Android devices, it won't work well either at this point. But it is a really good start, and I would like to just show you some of the things and how we're doing that. I just need, my phone is messaging me. I will just get this shut off. I'll talk later. Sorry about that. Maybe share. All right, so here we are in Google Drawing. Welcome those who have just arrived. Those of you who have arrived, I really encourage you to open up the chat window. Moving your mouse to the left-hand side, you'll see a blue square with the lines there. Encourage you to actually click in there and say who you are and where you're from. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to go sample drawing for the afternoon. Other things that I want to do in my setup before I go too far. First thing I want to do is I'm going to go to here and I'm going to go to page setup. And you'll see that it's set to be 4:3 as the standard, and it's got 2 widescreen formats and a custom. Now, most of you are probably working on widescreen devices at this point in time, so I'm going to click widescreen, thus giving me a lot more real estate here to be working with as I actually use it. So, the question is, what can I do with this? Well, just like most drawing programs, a lot of the power is actually set up here, and it's kept very simple. It's not Photoshop. It's not designed to be a replacement for Photoshop. It's more designed to be a way that we can actually draw things. So let's just start. I'm going to grab the line tool, and I drew one there. And you'll see by default, I'm just going to select it each time, and it automatically goes back to there each time. Okay. I have a whole lot of options once I get that particular one up that are available over here. For example, I can change the pen color. I can grab this and multi-select, which I'm sure is something that a lot of people have seen before, and then I can change the pen color. I can change the thickness of the lines. I can change whether it's a dashed line. And it also has the capacity within here. Just select those 3 again. I get rid of the dashed line just so that it makes a bit more sense. I have the capacity to put on arrows at the start and also arrows at the finish. So immediately we can start to see how this is going to be an effective program for actually having a way of drawing diagrams and being able to build connections between stuff that we know. So that's just a straight line. Obviously, you can draw one with an arrow straight away. And then there's also these connectors, which we'll get to very shortly. I'm going to leave them out just for now because they'll make a bit more sense as we move to other sections. But there's a polyline, which allows me to draw that. And note how I finished it off to complete it as a shape. And because it's a shape, it actually has a fill color that I can change as well as a line color. So let's see if we can find the most atrocious color combinations that we can think of and build that up there. Notice that it's on there, and I started drawing one that I don't want. If I press the escape key, it will release that and put it back to the pointer tool. So there is a handy way there. I have this selection here. I can even get to the point where I can scribble. Now, scribbling with a mouse, it's not great. I guess I could make a nice cloud that way if I wanted to. Now, let's recognize this afternoon I have no actual drawing skills whatsoever. In Year 7 art, I remember clearly my art teacher, Mr. Church, he used my big diagram there as, my original painting that I had to do in thing. He used as a demo for the rest of the class. Looked quite good. It's just a shame I didn't actually do anything on it. All right, so we've created some parts there. Look, I encourage you as you're watching this afternoon to have Google Draw open and to experiment with these tools as we go along. So there's all these ones here that are available to you, remembering that we'll get to the connectors very shortly. All right, then over here we've got our shapes. I've got hundreds of shapes which are very handy for us. So grab that there. Yeah, I wonder why the default color is blue. Obviously it's the last color I used. Okay, even that's still not very red, is it? Click on that. And let's get the bright red. All right, so we've got hundreds of shapes and arrows, call outs, and even equation signs, which can be a handy thing for us to use. So if I want to grab a more distinctive arrow, select that there, and I can draw the arrow there. Note that a number of these will have these yellow dots in them, which allow you to play with the setup of how the original item looks. And then also note the circle here, which allows us to rotate. Now, if you're not used to using graphic programs, you probably should be aware that if you hold down the shift key, it moves it up in increments as you turn it around, rather than just having a free shift. For example, if I want to get it to straight up, holding the shift key down as I moved that object there enabled me to actually make sure that the angle was exactly up. It meant that it was moving it, in this case, in 15-degree increments as it went along. So yeah, there's some of the basic parts of Google Draw. There is a whole lot of other tricks that do come with it. You can create a text box, which is obviously a really important thing. So hello, welcome to today's training session. And once I'm in there, obviously it's contextual, and I can then get access to all these different things which allow me to go size, allows me to do layout, allows me to have the text color changed, maybe not yellow, but then I've got a number of lining and indents and all the things that I'd expect to see through that later on. There's even a clear formatting button, which I'm finding becomes more and more handy as I go along. But as I grab that, I then have the capacity to move it around. And because this is collaborative, there is nothing to stop me from having a number of you actually help work on this. And in a second, when we start doing some of the more structured ones, I'll get you guys to actually have a go where you can actually share and help me construct the page rather than just watching. Okay, so as we move it along, notice how there's all these red lines that are popping up in the particular object. So if I want to center something right in the middle of the page, by moving it to approximately the center, I then get those red lines appear, which says, all right, that text is now in exactly the right position. I can grab other objects and move them out the way. Grab the wrong one in this case. Sometimes you just want to make sure that you grab different sections. Just like in any program, the undo button is probably one of the most valuable things that we have. So for us, it is Command Z, or I think you'll find on most PCs it's going to be Control Z. But either way, make sure you know what the undo option is. And I also really like the redo button option. So sometimes that can be really handy. So for example, if I come here and I go arrow and I draw one there, then what I can do is I can redo that, and I should be getting some copies of it. You see how I just was able to do that. But now that I've moved the object, if I go to redo, the moving of the object will be the thing that will be redone, not there. So if you need 5 of the same objects, sometimes you can just go make one and then Command Y 5 times. All right, so let's get to the point where we are starting to create some type of graphical organizer. So I'm going to go and use some samples first, just before we go and jump and make our own. One last thing I guess I would be good to show you is that if you use a shape, I like this curved corner shape here, and you can, obviously it comes with a fill color straight away, which you don't have to keep. You can go and set it to be transparent. But at the same time, it is also possible to come in here and go, oh, I want it to be green. But any of these shapes, if I double click on them, I get access to a text box, which allows me to go, all right, New South Wales, and I get the capacity to line it up how I want it to be. Probably one of the ones that I think that people forget the most, or maybe have never seen it before, but if you want to be able to duplicate an object, rather than just going copy and paste, you can hold the Alt key down. And this works in a lot of things such as Microsoft Word and other things. So if I click on this object here and then I hold down the Alt key and drag it somewhere else, I'm basically cloning it. So I was like moving it, not if I'm editing it, and then I end up with all those ones there. So let's get rid of it by undoing it. But if I needed another arrow exactly the same as that, I could just click on it, copy and paste, which would certainly work for me. But at the same time, probably the easier way is just to hold down the Alt key on the keyboard, and as I move the object, I get a second copy and the original one stays in place. All right, so there's some basics of drawing tools, which I think is fantastic. Now, at the start, I put in a list of graphic templates that other people have already created. And specifically, I put up this page, which is the appsusergroup.org, and they have a number of resources for drawing templates, which is fantastic. So let's just come in here and let's have a look at one of their basic ones that they've set up. They're very nice in what they've done here. They've got some training videos as well. Look, if you really wanted to go into in-depth, there's over an hour of training in how to use these and create these. I'm going to just open up the 3-circle Venn diagram. Now, when it opens up, because they've set it to be read-only, what happens here is that I can only view it. I can't change anything. And if you're trying to share a diagram to students that you want them to make a copy of, this is not a bad way to do it. So first thing I do is I go here and go File, and I go Make a Copy. Copy of the 3-circle Venn diagram. I don't really need the words copy there because it's going into my one. I'm just going to go 3-circle Venn diagram, but I obviously could give it a name. So you can see it's been very much built with the traditional worksheet setup. A worksheet where we have the name and the date at the top. Look, it's made so that a student could print it out, but at the same time I could easily come in here now and potentially change some of the elements in here. So instead of it saying that there, I could go Dave Collins, and I wouldn't be expecting to keep the lines in there anymore. And today's date is the 9th of June, 2015. So there we go, we can change things around. It's built like a traditional worksheet, but then what I've got here is these 3 circles that have been created. And I can move them around and put them back to where it was, allowing me to have that capacity to come in here and to change some of the text. So I could put down here, this diagram could be, let's see, the best place to buy a house. All right, so we could come in here and we could do a survey with people. We could say New South Wales is category 1. Queensland, category 2, and Victoria, category 3. All right, and then what we could start to do, now that we've labelled them, and there's nothing to stop us from grabbing these things and moving them inside here now. The overlaps in the Venn diagrams, we could start putting numbers in here. So I probably just would grab the text tool, all right, and let's say that 55% of people think New South Wales would be the best place to buy a house. Queensland, well, I just double clicked on it then and it allowed me to type, so that's pretty handy, but maybe just for flexibility, I'll draw my own text box and I'll go, well, 33% here. I'm going to well and truly go over the numbers. Victoria is particularly cold and they only play AFL down there, so probably only 12%. In there, and then we'd start working through, well, how much is the overlaps and how does all that work through? I'm going to teach you how to necessarily do a Venn diagram this afternoon, but you can see that as a graphical organizer, this Venn diagram in a digital format allows students to actually organize their work in a quite simple way. All the tools that are here that you'd expect them to have, so long as they're working on a laptop or working on a device like a Chromebook, don't have no problems doing it. Mobile devices, and iPads included at the moment, wouldn't be able to do this effectively. It most likely would crash. I pretty well guarantee it would crash, but at the same time, maybe it's something you can look at as you go along. So the 3-circle Venn diagram from the guys who put this site together here, the apps user group, is fantastic and I can recommend that highly. Let's just have a look at some other samples here. Here is the butterfly life cycle. If you've watched some of the training from me in the past, you may have already seen this once, but I think it's a really valuable one to demonstrate what's going here. So once again, I need to make a copy, butterfly life cycle. Once I've made my copy, then I might as well shut down the old one just to make sure that I'm free with it there. I have some images here that have been created. So in this case, let's start with saying that that is going to be the first step, and then students are obviously being given the objects that they can use, go into a cocoon, and then there's the butterfly. So the whole task here is the students are organising their knowledge by visibly putting them in the right places. And then once we've got those in the right place, obviously we can change our name and those sorts of things. I'm going to come up here to this tool that I ignored before. There's the elbow connector and the curved connector. They're very similar, the two here. I'm going to show you the curved connector this afternoon. Now notice as I put my mouse over any object, I'm getting these 4 little purple dots, top, bottom, left and right. Move to any particular object, same thing happens there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the mouse over this one. I'm going to hold down my mouse, and then I'm going to come down to this object here, and I'm going to wait till that purple dot appears so that I get the circle. And so I've joined that object together. Let's do it again. We'll go off the bottom, Sometimes patience with this does help to make sure that you get it lined up and that you've got it in a circle. But once you get the hang of it, it's actually pretty quick. And what I've been able to do there is now I can grab that, move that to there. And so because they're connectors, the objects are connected together. And so if I choose to move them around into different places, they stay there. Now, at the moment, that's not really indicating us which way the connection goes. Like sometimes you just want to say this object's connected to that. But if I click on this here, I can choose the end that I would like to have. I might even make it a bit colorful. Thing to remember is when you're working in a digital environment, it doesn't cost you anything more to use color. Color is so good for students to understand. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to shift select. So just to put a little visual reminder here, shift select. So basically that means to hold down the shift button as I click on these parts. So I'm getting those three included. And now because I've got the three included, I can go in here and click it and all three are built there. It was a bit of a trick as I did these connections. I made sure that they went from this object at the start to the end, and I kept going around like that. I never built one going the opposite direction, and that's probably something that students would learn pretty quickly. You could always overcome it by just changing the direction. And now I've set the color there. And so hopefully from that information, you can see that there is a connection between each of these stages. And look, and to be honest, there are a number of fantastic templates out there on this site that you can create. I mean, so you can use to help the students use. So there's nothing to stop you from going, all right, today we want to use this one, putting a link to it and getting the students to work off it from that. It has changed just a little bit since the past. If you wanted to force the students to make their own copy, and there's a lot of other ways that you could do this, teacher dashboard and things like that. In the address bar up the top, where it says edit, if you replace it with the word copy, and then use that as your link. So all you've done is change the word edit to copy, and I press enter. What will happen is that it will load up here and it will say, would you like to make a copy of sample drawing? So automatically the students are being forced into actually setting it up to make their own particular copies. All right, let's just have a look at another one of these. I particularly quite like this season sorter here. Open it up. Again, because there's a setup as a share with view only, I can now go here and go make a copy of the season sorter. I couldn't be bothered renaming it. I'll end up probably deleting these a little bit afterwards. What has happened here is that the teacher, whoever created this, has actually gone in here and said, all right, here are all the images that you might need in it. So you can just come in here and grab them and go, oh, the thongs for summer. Halloween in America, that would be their fall, I think. In Australia, it would be our spring. So let's put it up there. Sun, snowman for winter. And even though this is a very simple one here, I'm not sure when the umbrella would be. Maybe it's connected for summer. Probably have to put the rain with it there. Santa comes in the winter in America, but in Australia, it's the summer. I have no idea when the turkey would be needed. I'm guessing that must be fall. Flowers would be spring. The beach ball would be summer as well. Going to school bus, you might actually need a few of them because you go to school in several places, probably just not in summer. So to make the multiple copies, again, I have held down the Alt key. And so I've very quickly classified this. It's up to you as a teacher to consider, well, when would it be best for the students to be able to classify a whole lot of different objects, whether it's graphically or by words, to be able to move them into that position. By them arranging it, they very clearly show how much they understand in the work that they're doing at this point in time. All right, if I click on these objects here, at the moment, there's nothing that I can do with them. They're just straight there. I can resize them, I can change them around, but it's a little bit different to the normal way of doing it. So let's say we've got a student who's been really quick, they've finished this off and they've decided that, yes, they'd like some more images. So let's go up here to the tools menu. There's a couple of ways I could do this. I could go insert an image, but I really like this tools menu called research. And you see that it pops up over here with an options, and I can switch that over to images. And if I grab the little drop down menu, at the moment it's not filtered by license, but if we're into Creative Commons and making sure that students are using objects which people are happy for them to use, changing it to free to use, share or modify, etc. is a very handy way to do it. So let's say I would like to get a picture of a wave to add to my summer one. Now that it's searched like that, I have a whole lot of options, and I can grab that one and I can drop it there. It does take just a second or two to create the image, and you probably will need to rescale it and place it in the right point. Now, this is the nice thing with it here, with Creative Commons. Let's say the rain can go over there in the fall. We'll place that one there. Notice how I've just brought that in, that when I click on the object, it shows me the address where it came from. Now, that's really nice for students who don't do a good job at keeping track of where all the images came from when they're trying to create a bibliography. That is fantastic. But sometimes it also can be annoying. There's some advantages to it. You could use this type of thing to be able to be a link to go somewhere else. So it could be an interactive graphical drawing rather than just still. But it's for some people, when you click on it and it pops up this, it can be annoying. So there is the option here to remove it. So let's just remove that one there. And so now it works just like all the rest of these objects. I've shown some of this before, but let's repeat it. And this is stuff that I got from that original training video there. If you want more of a transparent object, you can put in PNG. It's come up with a pretty low number of them there. Okay. And the other one is that you can type in the word clip art, and that will give you more like the shapes that are here. In this particular case, probably not a lot of options here for us, a little bit low, but it depends what it is that you're searching for. This can be a handy thing to be able to do searches for that. I'm not sure why these are coming back as waves. Let's just try instead, I would like a dog clip art picture. There we've got that there. And if I want to make sure it's transparent, by typing in the word PNG can also help us. And then once I found the dog, if I drag him onto there, it's not 100% guaranteed, but most likely, notice how when I place him over the top of this background, you can't see the white section. So that part, the transparency, that's part of it being a PNG, but at the same time, by putting the word clip art in over here, that also meant that it was more likely going to bring back clip art here. Now, there's no guarantees. Google needs to know of all these objects out in the web, and if that doesn't know, it can't help you. But then at the same time, there's a pretty large collection of stuff which people have said, yeah, we're happy for you to use and to do whatever it is you want to use with it, and they've set it up like that. All right. Well, once again, I want to encourage you, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, that you make sure that you put it here in the chat window on the side of the screen. Okay, so let's just maybe do one last thing. Let's start with a new drawing. So I can do it just within this. Really encourage the students initially to straight away rename it. So basic organizer. All right, once again, if I'm working mostly in widescreen, changing the page setup to be widescreen makes a massive difference. All right, so let's start here with some shapes. Okay, and we're going to ask the students to be able to construct a few things. So let's go, I'm going to center it up. Okay, name of country. Yep. And then I would like to be able to, now that I've got that set up there, I'd like to make some copies of it. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key and just drag a couple of these out. Okay. Okay. Here we're going to write what is known for products it manufactures. And best tourist destination and And over here, let's make sure we know what the population of the country is. So I've set this up, I've put some stuff here. I would then be able to come in here as I create this graphical organizer for the class and go, all right, here's one there, 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 and there. So I've started to build the graphical organizer, and then I could share that with my class so they could go from there. All right, well, I think that completes this particular week. It's not the end of Google Draw for sure. If you go back to this Google Drawings page from the apps user group, they have a training video which is a lot longer than mine and probably a lot more detailed in mine. I'm really just hoping to get you started on using it this afternoon. I think sometimes when we start using Google Apps, we have a tradition of going very word-based, and documents seem to control it all. But I know for a lot of students, myself included, knowing diagrams and how to be able to set that up properly can actually be a really valuable thing. Just because we're doing it digitally shouldn't limit us from actually creating interesting drawings and pictures. And I really think Google Drawing has some amazing stuff. Haven't even shown you this afternoon how you can use the share button so people can access this page and can be able to join in and work collaboratively. Just like all the other tools that within the Google Apps for Education suite, the share button is incredibly powerful. All right, well, hopefully you can join us next week for some more work. It's 2 weeks time. Let's just get rid of the screen sharing. Go back to me here. If you excuse me, if you are not aware, we host this every 2 weeks as part of Single Point IT, and we have got some other events coming up shortly. So I'm just going to pop over and show you the page which we use to promote it, which is here. So next time, June 22nd, let's just make sure that we get back to here. I'm just going to show you the page. Screen share, that's the one that we want. All right, so in here in our Google Apps for Education group, we have here the place where all of the sections are that we have the training. So previous training will be available here. You can already see here that Google's getting ready to put the YouTube of today's afternoon session there. But in 2 weeks time, on Monday, the 22nd of June at 3:30, we're going to be going through using Flubaroo to create multiple choice quizzes. Did a little bit of this last term, but I want to do it again just to make sure that everyone does have it. It was more of a test broadcast back then, so hopefully it might be a chance for some other people to see it. Flubaroo extension for forms is a really effective and easy way of doing formative assessment with your classes. Hope you can join us next time, and thanks for joining us today.